Welcome to the Digital Marketing Insights podcast, brought to you by Brightside Digital.
Hi everyone, welcome to the show. I'm really excited to introduce you to Cian today, who's a freelance video content creator. How are you doing, Cian?
Yeah, doing very good. Thanks, Tom.
Cian, can we start off by you telling everyone just your career to date and a little bit about yourself and your skill set?
Yeah, so I guess, so I studied in Dublin in the National College of Art and Design and graduated back in 2013. Graduated in visual communications, which is kind of like graphic design, really. And yeah, even like while I was on the course, I think in my second year, I'd managed to just kind of get a desk with a local photographer and started practicing Photoshop. I would do like a day working there every week in my second year. In my third year, at the end, I did Erasmus as well, where I studied abroad in Finland, and I did an internship then in the summer of my third year. And there's a funny part to this story where I actually failed my fourth year. I mean, there's lots of different factors there, but long story short, what I wound up doing is a bunch of other internships, and then repeated my fourth year again, and then graduated 2013, and then left to London. I wound up leaving to London because in 2013 at that time, there were barely any jobs in Dublin for graphic designers, for sure. And like, I wasn't actually all that interested in web design, which back in 2013 was like kind of a big thing, you know? So, and for a long time, I felt kind of silly. I just really enjoyed motion graphics and video. I'd bought myself a digital SLR that could shoot video. So I was using that and just kind of creating, you know, these little bits and pieces. And yeah, like I was working in a bunch of different graphic design and advertising agencies in Dublin, like Dynamo would be one of them. Image Now is another. Boys and Girls as well I worked in before I left to London. I'd accrued like kind of a lot of, I was always big into networking and reaching out to people and just asking people questions and seeing what I could get. Anyway, so I wasn't really feeling the love in Dublin as much, and I was reaching out for jobs in London via the It's Nice That website. Maybe some graphic design people might know that. But wound up getting a trial position there in London. Moved over. The trial ended after 3 months, unfortunately, and they didn't keep me on, even though, like, as part of the work. So it was I was working as a sorry, I don't know how much I should get into this, but either way, working in Passion Pictures as a pitch designer. And our first pitch was actually for Nike, and it was like this giant budget. It was like $6 million. I wound up working on that pitch, and we won the pitch. So basically, from what I understood, like, they didn't really need that much more new business. And I would say I was probably like a bit of a difficult employee. I would always like try and do the work as quickly as possible and ask for more work. And I did blow hot and cold on some projects as well, like looking back. So arguably not the best employee anyway. They wound up letting me go. I spent a few months unemployed and then picked up another internship. But then, funnily enough, so this is in May 2014 then, I wound up being diagnosed with leukemia. So that was like a pretty big blow. So we're talking almost about 8 years ago now. And so long story short, like quite a long and like difficult journey through the cancer stuff. So I had a bone marrow transplant in 2015, and then and actually it was 6 months after my bone marrow transplant then that I started being self-employed. So I was looking for jobs, and again, still in 2015, not that many jobs in Dublin, especially for people with my kind of skills. You know, I was still, like big into video stuff, and you know, like if I wanted to be a graphic designer, there weren't that many digital designer roles yet, even in 2015 at that time. Um, so yeah, again, kind of hard luck on that front. But then people would give me little bits and pieces of work. So like little jobs, 100 quid there, 3 days work there. You know, I would start to hustle for my own little projects. And yeah, slowly over time, I managed to actually build up a bit of an income. I think in the first 6 months or so, I might have made about maybe 6 grand or so. But then in the first full year, I made about 24. And so, yeah, so things started kind of kicking off for me in a good way. But then 3 years into my journey, I was making around like maybe 35 or so a year at that time. And I didn't really even know what to do with the money. I was like, well, I've paid my rent. Like, what else do I do with it? And I decided to rent an office. And it kind of came at a time when co-working was starting to be popular. We're talking around 2018 or so. And either way, I decided to go ahead. I rented this big enough office for 1,500 a month, and realized I'd made a huge mistake because I didn't know anything about managing a space or letting it out or anything like that. And then I found myself in this position where I was like, what the hell am I doing? Like, really, what is my plan here? And I didn't have one, and I was just miserable. And so thankfully now I said it to the landlord, to the guys, and they were shocked because they thought like I was super happy and that I was doing really well. Even though I hadn't gotten anyone else to kind of come in or basically the stress of the obligation that I had with the office was really kind of pulling me down. And they managed to find someone else then to take over the lease, which was really good, and that set me free. And from that point onwards, I really started to focus on my happiness, So that was about 4 years or so ago now, and now here I am, 8 years in, and well, I guess I should mention as well, I started seeing a therapist around that time, and I didn't anticipate this happening, but I've gone on to actually start studying counseling and psychotherapy myself. So yeah, it's been a long enough journey. I probably haven't mentioned some of the kind of the career highlights in there as well. I have become, I guess, like a successful videographer. And I have had work in the National Gallery. I've had artistic commissions. I've traveled abroad for different tech companies. I was in Tokyo in 2019. That was probably one of my career highlights. I've had assistants and interns and stuff like that. After failing in 2014, I was back at NCAD, the college where I studied teaching in 2016. So part-time from 2016 to 2019, I was teaching at third level. So yeah, there's lots of those kinds of things. And so it's led to a pretty fleshed out journey.
I'm sure everyone listening just are in awe of your incredible journey, and I'm so proud that you've beaten cancer and you're living your dream at the moment. And yeah, you're right, happiness is the forefront of everything. But just to touch on there, let's talk about some of your campaign successes. Let's talk about some areas you're really proud of. What kind of campaigns spring to mind when I ask that question?
Campaign? No, so I would say career successes, big campaigns and stuff like that. Like in Ireland, I've just been like doing small little things for people. It's kind of like, people they'll have a specific requirement, and I can fulfill that requirement, and that's really where I've been happy staying, for quite a while, because yeah, I don't know, I figured like for me, especially back in 2018, I guess I decided money and earning was not a priority for me, that I would, and I was already kind of making enough. In fact, how do I put it? Like, I think through telling the story and through the point that I arrived at, I did realize I was kind of a workaholic at the age of 28. So I realized like my efforts since have actually been more to just enjoy myself. I've been like, this year, for example, in 2022, or sorry, last year, I should say, because we're just after coming into 2023. So last year I was in Peru for a month. I went to Peru from the 14th of February to the 17th of March or so. I was in Portugal at a festival in the summer. Like, you know, the work for me now, and now there's still like a huge element to that I really love, where like focusing on, you know, Irish stories and Irish companies and stuff like that is like really validating for me. Like I really enjoy, you know, participating in other people's success. But then, you know, you'll also have international agencies in Dublin that just need a certain thing done, and then I'll do it. You know, they'll get on to me. They'll be like, "Cian, quick, we need XYZ done," and you know, I'll get into it. And I know that's not that flattering from a you know, big campaign point of view. Like, yeah, I've done work for clients like, I don't know, you know, Jameson and Fáilte Ireland and you know, some big enough kind of Irish institutions and stuff like that. But yeah, like big campaigns, no, haven't been my bread and butter.
What stood out for me in some of the content I saw when I was looking at your work was just your own work. And I would see some of it as a success in itself. You know, one of your latest videos is a really interesting way around Phoenix Park, going through the Woodlands area. But is that something you're finding is resonating with people at the moment in terms of creating content? Is that the secret right now in 2023, is to create kind of intriguing content for some businesses, and whether they use you or not, but some of that content is the right way of going about doing something interesting?
Well, I don't know, you know, like when I put up a video like that on my LinkedIn, I'm assuming that like people want to see this, right? That I've created this little kind of snippet and people would be intrigued by watching it, you know? Like, I think now a really interesting conversation that I had lately with an agency is around this idea. And I think that this is true, that like in 2023, like people's approach to authenticity and to honesty has really changed, you know? Like, I think, you know, people really trust that kind of word of mouth is probably among the first things that people will consider when it comes to a brand or a service or a product or whatever it is. And I feel like there's an opportunity now to be really authentic, to be really real with what people are doing and making. And I feel like that's a huge opportunity, say, for someone like myself, because I love telling those kind of real stories, you know? So showing Phoenix Park as it is, you know, but maybe in the fog and maybe in through the branches or whatever, like it's already there, you know? So it's about showing the beauty in something that's real, you know? Yeah. Because
And like the video content, and you know, you've done ones along coastlines and all these kind of, but I can imagine that kind of content with either text as an overlay or storytelling. It doesn't, or even like music videos or something like that. It's you find there is that kind of content out there regularly where, you know, it's inspiring, but there's like an overlay of content over it. Yeah, I'm kind of just talking content, and for anyone listening, it does give you an idea of how you can market such creatives and create campaigns and stuff about it. But I'm more interested, Cian, when you're doing your videos, especially for clients over the years and stuff, what's the best process for you? Do you like a lot of creativity? Do you like a script so that the expectation of what you produce is close to what the client imagined in the first place? What's the best scenario for you?
Well, you know, it's funny, right? People always ask like, oh, how do I edit better? You know, they're like, oh, how do I make a better edit with this footage or whatever? Like, I believe any good video starts with a conversation with the client. like the client will have specific needs and wants, and then it's about like, right, like how do I best create a video that then goes on to encapsulate everything that you want to say and says it in a way that's relatable and that's shareable or spreadable. Like a script, is something that should come about very organically, I think, and the video then should basically reflect the script, without someone having to read a script, essentially. Like, because this is it, right? Like sometimes videos will play completely muted, so you won't have a voiceover, you mightn't have music. It's like, it's so important that a video tells a story without, like, even while removing some of the elements, Yeah.
And for anyone listening, is there any particular softwares, or how can they get into videography? What equipment, what musts can they do? Can you kind of talk us in your process, or how someone could get set up?
Yeah, like I don't know, I guide people all the time, with this kind of stuff. I meet people that are starting out, and like I'd say my main piece of advice, even though I don't really like the word advice now as much anymore, but either way, like what I always did anyway was just to make stuff, just get out there. Like, there might be a coffee shop around the corner, and you just ask them, and it's scary. Okay, like it's always scary to ask the coffee shop, like, hey, can I bring my camera in and take some footage? 9 times out of 10 they'll be absolutely fine with it. A lot of people are really nervous and anxious about what might happen. Oh, this kind of perfectionism where people feel like things need to be right before they start on something. And absolutely not. Yeah, just go for it.
Yeah, really.
What's up, Angry Designers? My name's Massimo, and I'm the host of the Angry Designer Podcast, a no-bull design podcast that cuts through the industry crap to help frustrated designers survive and thrive. Our podcast covers typical things like design, trends, and technology, but we also cover some of the more difficult topics like burnout, ageism, pain-in-the-ass customers, and even the general ridiculousness of our industry. Let us do the venting for you. Click on the link in the show notes to check out our podcast, or visit us on your favorite podcast app at The Angry Designer. Stay angry, our friends.
Well said. And in terms of software, you've already mentioned Photoshop. What's your go-to video editing softwares? And is there any other tips or value you could add there to people?
Yeah, so like growing up, I think I've been using Premiere Pro, the editing program, since I was 15. I'm 32 now, so that's like 17 years, which it seems crazy to me. But yeah, the Adobe suite was always like the gold standard. But recently there's been this program, DaVinci Resolve, and oh my God, it's just brilliant. It's really, really good. It runs super smoothly. Adobe Premiere always used to kind of chug, and now they've actually caught up a good bit. Actually, Adobe have really stepped up the game. But yeah, I now edit using DaVinci Resolve, and yeah, and it's free. This is the crazy part. It's free. Like I have the professional version, which costs 300 quid on top, and that's a one-time fee. And yeah, I pay my subscription for the Adobe stuff every, once a month. And I've been doing that for years. But like, yeah, I'd encourage anyone to check out DaVinci Resolve, just as far as putting footage together. This is the thing, like video is fun, like it's a language. It's kind of like writing, so you can put clips together, you can put your own voice over it, you can find a friend's music and put it on top. Like it's really powerful stuff. And that's why, you have people on, they're making content on TikTok, for their businesses or whatever, and some of the videos are going viral, and that's great. It's really great. So yeah, start tinkering away.
And anywhere where you go for new information at the moment, Cian, is that where would you learn to upskill?
Well, so as I said, I'm not upskilling currently in the video area. So I'm upskilling in counseling and psychotherapy, which might sound completely different. It's like, hold on a second, what has that got to do with digital media? But for me, I'm going to be talking to people for the rest of my life and listening to people. And sometimes people share, especially with my story, people have shared, very vulnerable parts of their lives. And I've also found a lot of the benefits in therapy myself, in terms of my confidence, my self esteem, my ability to react to stressful and difficult situations as well. Because I think going forwards, yeah, it's like we're going into a lot of unknown territory, and that can be very scary. And I feel like, techniques that help us communicate, reflect, self-reflect. A lot of people don't realize, you know, like we're only ever in our own way, you know. So I'm trying to find the ways to get out of my own way. Yeah, there we go. That's my
Well
answer.
said. No, that's brilliant. And looking at the digital industry as a whole, but I would like you to come from a video point of view. For anyone listening, is there any areas you would really recommend if a business was like, right, 2023 is the year for us to do video. We're going to look, they can seek you out for advice, but let's say they're trying to put a plan together. They've heard YouTube Shorts is a good idea, TikTok is a good idea. What should they do? Where's the opportunities right now in the video market for a business?
It's difficult, right? Because, I would encourage every business to get out there, to start creating some kind of content, be it putting it up on LinkedIn, be it putting it out on YouTube. But at the same time, that can be a big resource demand. People can end up putting a lot of time and money into something that ends up getting 50 views, you know. But at the end of the day, I do think consistency is key. And consistency has been key for me, just in terms of, you know, whatever my strategy has been, to just keep going. And like, whatever people can consistently produce or put out there eventually does get noticed. I don't believe in wasted effort at all. So I would encourage everyone to, if they have a business, yeah, to start a platform like your podcast, for example. You've allocated time on a Thursday to do it. It's something you enjoy doing. You're out there, you reach out. It's a way of networking. It's a way of putting your own name out there. And so, you've managed to find the right channel for yourself to start creating your digital content. And maybe it's audio only. But, for some people, maybe they really like a video aspect. Like, I don't know, if they've, I'm just gonna like invent a plane business, and this person loves planes, and they put out a small little short video about a plane once a month or something like that. Like it's about finding what you find interesting, what you can do consistently, and just to start to create some kind of digital presence for yourself out there. I would encourage any brand, product, service to start doing that, and
And
in a way that's authentic as well. Like, not in a way, like, everyone has an area of expertise, everyone has a gift, and so it's about sharing those gifts, with other people in ways that are uh, like manageable. Not shooting for the moon, but just something that they can show up to consistently. Yeah.
and you mentioned LinkedIn there. Would that be one of your recommendations, or which,
Totally.
as a
Totally.
videographer, what would be where do you put your content, I suppose, and what do you
Oh,
think is the best
well,
way?
I don't know. Like, I have an Instagram and I put stuff up there if I feel like it. I'm kind of willy nilly with my attempts. Like, I'm not the best example of someone who, really wants to grow their business in a really powerful way. I'm much more about creating an environment that I really enjoy. Just working in a way that I enjoy, not putting pressure or stress on myself. But on the other hand, I will say, so you asked about LinkedIn. LinkedIn has definitely come along as a social network for professionals. Anyone that has assisted me or interned with me, I always encourage them, just go out and add people. Find people who you would like to talk to and just add them and say hello, introduce yourself, show your work. No one on LinkedIn will turn around and say, hey, get out of my DM, stop promoting yourself. That's anathema, I think, to the culture at LinkedIn. So that's really, really good. So I'd say maximize your LinkedIn contacts, and then start producing content and putting it up there on LinkedIn. And all of a sudden, those people that really want you to succeed will start to notice the work that you do, and I'm sure that they'll be interested in it as well.
Love it. Great answer, Cian. And lastly, we always try and understand the people behind the role. And the question I ask is, if you could bottle up one personality trait that Cian has himself that you could pass on to others, what would it be?
I don't know. I will say, do you know what? I don't know how it's happened, but I've never given up. I've just had the confidence to just keep going, keep trying, because I do see what I see a lot of people is a lot of people beating themselves up, being really mean to themselves, saying things that no one else would ever say to them. And this did happen to me back like in 2018. I was saying mean things to myself when the office didn't work out. But to just to take that into account and to be like, right, look, like I'm going to just keep doing my thing, Yeah, don't give up. That's my advice.
Brilliant advice. That's it, Cian. If people want to reach out to you, I'm sure there will be a couple of listeners that want to know more about your video work in general, but how can they get in touch with you? What's the best place to find you?
Yeah, well, probably LinkedIn's a great way to reach out. I'd mentioned I haven't updated my website since 2018, so I probably need to get on that. I guess I get a lot of my work through referrals, so not a lot of it comes in through my website. My Instagram is Ciantastic as well. If people want to have a look at my work there, they can. I always welcome people reaching out for whatever reason. Very happy to entertain. I think a conversation is always free, as I like to say. So, there we go. That's my piece.
Cian, thank you so much for being on the show, and thank you everyone for listening. I hope you love what you had to say.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.